Okay, hi guys. I want to talk to you today about the law of demand again, and also demand shifters is what we're going to focus on in this little lesson. And the thing to remember is that there are 6 things that can cause demand to shift. This is different than what makes demand go up or down, which is price, right? We know that when price goes up, demand goes down. When price goes down, demand goes up. So there's an inverse relationship with those two things. But price is the only thing that's making demand change. But what I'm going to tell you today is that there are 6 things that can make demand shift. So what that means is, instead of, this is our graph, price and quantity. So instead of, ooh, that's a horrible P, let's fix that. That's a better P. All right, so instead of our demand kind of shifting along this line depending on what the price is, okay, the quantity demanded shifts along this line, what I'm saying is there are 6 things that can actually make demand shift. And that means moving out here to the right. That would be making demand shift up, quantity demanded to move up, and that's a shift to the right. Or it can move over here to the left, which would mean demand shifting to the left, going down. All right? We'll talk about what makes those things happen right now. Okay? Let's erase this. The first thing that can actually make demand shift is pretty simple. Actually, all these are pretty simple when you think about them. But is a change in income. Okay, so sometimes there's a change in income, and because of that, people can buy more stuff, or they can buy less stuff. Okay, so if this is our original demand curve for, let's say, luxury cars. Okay. So luxury cars would be expensive cars like BMW and Mercedes or whatever. And if all of a sudden everyone in the United States is making 10% more money than they did last year, one would think they'd have more money to buy cars, and they might have more money to spend on cars. So they might buy more luxury cars. So because of that, there's going to be a shift to the right for our demand. All right? And we draw that very simply. We always label the first demand curve D1. So that was the original one. The second demand curve, the shifting demand curve, we call that D2. That's pretty simple, right? D1, D2. First demand curve, change in income, second demand curve. Okay? But what if something else happened? What if all of a sudden people were making 10% less money than they were last year? Or people were being laid off their jobs, so they didn't have any money to spend. They're on unemployment or welfare or whatever. Well, if that's the case, if people are making less money, then you're going to have a shift to the left. We're going to show a decrease in demand. All right, so we're going to draw a new demand curve to the left of the original one. Draw our arrow pointing this way, and we would label this one D2. Okay? So it depends on what type of change in income there is, whether it's going to shift to the right or to the left. Okay? Again, this will start to make more sense as we go through all this. Let's try another one. So the second shifter that we want to talk about today is a change in the number of consumers. Change in number of consumers. I'll put that up here. Oops. There we go. Change in number of consumers. Okay. And there's our original demand curve, D1. All right, so if there's a change in the number of consumers, that means there are more people available to buy whatever it is you're selling. So they're demanding more of it because there's more people there. A good example of this would be if there was a concert in downtown Omaha on a Saturday afternoon, okay, in the summer. What would happen to demand for bottled water on that Saturday? Well, obviously, if it was hot out, it's summer, everybody's at a concert, they're going to want to get some bottled water. So probably demand for bottled water is going to go to the right. It's going to shift to the right. That shows an increase. Okay, so that's D2. Demand went up. Okay, that's fine. Now, but what if it's Sunday now? And the concert's over, and now it's Sunday, and it's a regular day in downtown Omaha. There's not going to be as many people demanding water now like there was on Saturday. So that's going to shift Maybe to the left, there's going to be less people downtown because the concert is not there anymore. That would become D2. Okay? So that's change in number of consumers. Anytime there's less people available to buy your product, then demand is going to change. Or if there's more people available, demand is going to change. Okay? All right. Let's go to our third one here, which is, what do we got? Oh, this is a change in consumer taste and preferences. All right. Write that up here. Change in consumer tastes and preferences. Okay, I'm assuming it's true that a lot of you don't like the same music you liked when you were 4 or 5 years old. You know, you're not listening to Barney songs anymore. In fact, they probably give you a headache. There's other music you like now. You've had a change in taste and preferences. A lot of our taste and preferences change as we get older for food and for clothing and lots of different things, books and music. So, let's see what happens when there's a change in preference to our demand curve. So this is our original demand curve, and let's say it's for Barney music, okay? Barney the dinosaur. So, and we'll say, now you're 15 years old. Okay, so how many 15-year-olds like Barney music? Not very many, right? So there's going to be a change in demand. That's going to be a shift to the left because there's going to be less people that want that Barney music. Got to label that D1. Now this is D2. That's a shift to the left. That shows a decrease in people's taste and preferences for Barney music. Okay, but what if you were at a daycare? Okay, you know, obviously there'd be an increase in the demand for Barney music, so that would be a shift to the right because kids in a daycare are young and they still like Barney, so that would become D2, and that would be a shift to the right. Okay, so that's a change in consumer taste and preferences. That happens all the time. When I was a kid, nobody ate sushi. Now a lot of people eat sushi here in the Midwest, especially. So taste and preferences change. Because of that, demand changes too. Okay? Demand shifts. Alright, let's try another one here. I think we're up to number 4. Number 4 is a change in consumer expectations. Change in consumer expectations. Okay. I'll write that up here. Change in consumer expectations. This one's a little bit complicated for my students to figure out. Let's see if I can explain it halfway decent. Here's our original demand curve, D1. All right, so what if sometimes our expectations for the price of a product changes, and because of that we're going to buy more or less of the product based on that we're expecting the price to change. So for instance, if I expected the price of gasoline to be $2 higher in 2 days, what might I do right now? Well, if I was smart, I'd rush out and fill up my tank, right? So I don't pay $2 more in 2 days. So I'm going to fill up my tank. Because of that expectation of the price change, I'm going to demand more gas right now. So that's going to be a shift to the right because we want more of it. Okay, right is always an increase. So that becomes D2, shift to the right. Okay, but what if the opposite was true? What if I expected the price of gas to go down in 2 days? What would happen to demand for gas right now? Well, a lot of people would try to milk their gas tank as long as they could, you know, before filling it in 2 days when the gas was cheaper. So demand right now is going to go down if we expect the price to be lower in a couple days. So that's going to be a shift to the left. And that becomes D2. Okay? So again, based on that expectation of a price change, that can affect whether we're demanding more or less of a product right now. Okay? All right. Let's try our 5th one here. Number 5 and 6 are kind of related to each other. You'll see why in a second. Okay, this one's called a change in the price of substitute goods. Change in price of substitute goods. Okay. I know you guys know there are some products that are virtually the same as each other, right? Just like for colas, pops that are colas, Pepsi and Coke are very similar. Now some people might prefer one or the other, but they're both colas, they both taste virtually the same. And most people wouldn't be able to tell the difference if you were drinking one or the other, quite honestly, I think. So because of that, because they're so similar, they are a substitute good. I could substitute Pepsi for Coke, Coke for Pepsi, especially if I was thirsty. I wouldn't really care. All right? So it's a substitute good. Because of that, if the price of the substitute good changes, I might demand more or less of one of the products, right? So for instance, if the price of Coke is much higher this week at the grocery store, what might I do? Buy more Coke or less Coke? Well, I'm probably going to demand less Coke because it's more expensive and I'm going to buy more Pepsi. So because of that, there'll be a shift to the left, a decrease in demand for Coke. Okay? But there would be an increase in the demand for the Pepsi, right? Because we get to substitute that product. Okay? So it kind of depends what's going on. But what if there is a decrease in the price of Coke compared to Pepsi? Well, in that case, demand for Pepsi or demand for Coke would go up because now Coke is cheaper than Pepsi. So that would become D2. We'd have a shift to the right. More people would be buying Coke. Okay? So that's a substitute good. And there's lots of substitute goods out there. When you think of shoes, a Nike running shoe and an Adidas running shoe, clothing, a Hollister shirt and whatever other brand of shirt you can think of, T-shirt. There's always substitute goods. Crayola crayons and other brands of crayons. I'm trying to think of other good substitute goods. Heinz ketchup and Hunt's ketchup. Again, if one's cheaper than the other, we'll probably buy the other one. It's a substitute good. Okay, let's go to our last one. Again, I said it was kind of related to this one, but just a little bit different. This is a change in the price of complementary goods. Okay? Complementary goods. So what's a complementary good? Well, a complementary good is just any good that goes with another good when you buy it. Okay? So for instance, I like to play tennis. Okay? Since I like to play tennis, if I buy a tennis racket, what else do I have to buy? Well, I have to buy tennis balls. They go together, right? You can't have much fun playing tennis without tennis balls. So they're a complementary good. So if the price of tennis rackets goes down, okay, what's going to happen to demand for tennis balls? Well, it's probably going to go up, right? Because people are going to buy more tennis rackets. They're going to need more balls. So that's going to cause a shift to the right. Oops. Sorry. That's D2. Let's fix that. D2, D1. Okay? Shift to the right. People want more tennis balls because tennis rackets are now cheaper and they're buying more tennis rackets. Okay? What if the opposite is true, though? What if, for instance, the price of tennis rackets goes up by $100? What's going to happen to demand for tennis balls? Well, obviously, demand for tennis balls is going to decrease. It's going to be a shift to the left. That's because they're complementary goods. Okay? What happens when the price of gas gets very expensive? People buy less big cars, right? They buy less Hummers and SUVs and gas guzzlers like that because they don't want to pay more for gas. Okay? That's because of the change in price of the complementary good, which is gas. Okay? When gas prices get relatively cheap again, people will probably want will demand more bigger cars that do take more gas, but it's cheaper to run them now. So maybe those Hummers and big cars will start making a comeback. Okay? So that's a change in price of complementary goods. These are all called demand shifters, the 6 things I just went over. You need to make sure you have those memorized or as well as possible during this unit and understand them as well as possible. You're going to get a lot of practice using these throughout the next week and a half and 2 weeks. And in a couple days, we'll go over supply shifters. These are the demand shifters. We're going to talk about the supply side next. All right, hope this made good sense to you. You need to come see me if you need some help understanding this or if you've been falling behind, because it's really easy to fall behind in this unit. Thanks a lot for listening. I'll see you in class.